Such divisions can make any bloc ineffective, whether it's the G7 or NATO or the European Union or the Brics. Tonight, we're focusing on the last one, Brics. It's a bloc of 5 emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, hence the name Brics. The name itself is an acronym. Last week, the Brics leaders gathered for a summit, virtually. Every member came with a different agenda. India was focused on shared economic interests. Russia was focused on bypassing Western sanctions, but China had the most ambitious one. China wanted to cultivate the Brics as a Western rival, a forum to take on the United States. Now, that's a big ask. We're talking about institutions that have been around since the Second World War. They're old and established. So to challenge them, you need a big coalition. You need a bigger coalition, much bigger than just 5 countries. So what does China do? They try to expand the Brics. 2 countries have applied for membership, Iran and Argentina. Technically, both of them fit the bill. They're emerging economies. They're rich in resources, and they don't subscribe to the Western system. Having said that, a few problems remain. First, the nomenclature. You have to accommodate 2 more letters now in Brics, A and I. Good luck to anyone trying to figure that out. But jokes aside, what does this expansion mean politically? And should India support it? For starters, this expansion is being pushed by China. They want the Brics to counter the G7 and G20. Basically, they want to create an alternative global economic order. On paper, it's not a bad idea, but what will this new order look like? Chances are a lot like China's, and I'll tell you why. Put together, the Brics GDP is almost $27.5 trillion, 27.5 trillion. Guess how much China contributes? Almost 70%. 70% of the Brics GDP belongs to China. Compare that to the rest. India makes up 13%. Russia and Brazil contribute 7% each. Do you see the problem here? China already has a lot of clout within the Brics, and this expansion is only going to increase that. Iran has signed a 25-year cooperation deal with China. Argentina is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Both countries are betting big on Beijing. And it will not stop at 2. Because China has a long list of potential members: Egypt, Indonesia, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Nigeria, Senegal, Thailand. These are all potential members identified by China. Some of them are key allies of the United States, and that's precisely why China wants them. They want to use the Brics to draw these countries away from the West. I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt. These are all important Western allies. So China's intentions are evident. Their plans are pretty transparent. The question is, how should India respond? Before last week's summit, India appeared to be tough on expansion. Reports said that any expansion bid would be stonewalled. The joint statement reflects that ambivalence. This is what it says, the Brics joint statement. And I'm quoting, "We support promoting discussions among Brics members on Brics expansion process. We stress the need to clarify the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures for the expansion process through Sherpa's channel on the basis of full consultation and consensus." In other words, in simpler words, India said, and the Brics members of the joint statement have said, that we are okay with expansion as long as it happens based on consultation and consensus. And this is where it gets tricky. China needs India to sign off on new members. If India disagrees, the Brics cannot expand. But can India say no to these countries? Iran, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, they're all key Indian partners. Can you say no to them? So India has a tough choice to make. If you expand Brics, you're giving China a powerful tool. If you don't, you're denying your partners. It's not an easy choice, but China is making at least some of them easier. I'll give you an example. Last week's Brics summit had a side event, a high-level dialogue on global development. A lot of emerging economies were invited to this dialogue. Guess who wasn't? Pakistan. And their government is still sulking about it. Listen to what their foreign ministry said, the Pakistani foreign ministry. "We have noted that this year a high-level dialogue on global development was held as a Brics side event in which a number of developing economies were invited. Regrettably, one member blocked Pakistan's participation." It's not much of a riddle. Chances are that member was India, and rightly so. The Brics is a grouping of emerging economies. It has no place for politics. Also, does Pakistan even qualify? Surely 22 loans from the IMF should be enough to count them out. All these considerations will shape India's approach to expanding the BRICS. It is important to not forget its founding principles: economic reforms, greater representation in the global financial institutions, a diverse monetary system, reforms to the United Nations Security Council. These were the big goals set by the BRICS. So challenging the Western order was the idea. But not through a Cold War, or by cultivating bloc politics, and certainly not by replacing the existing system with a Chinese one. WION is now available in your country. Download the app.
All right, Shalom to the hopeful elect, Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Rakakwadash. Double honor, Yah as always, to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, love, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect, Habayath Madabada, the house of David, the brothers laboring day in and day out on the four quarters of the earth, helping seal the elect of the nation of Israel for the return of our Lord Mashiach Yahushai is at hand, and to the Akim and Akwath, the Akyah wa Akwathya, who truly listen and believe on the glorious gospel of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is being preached on the four corners of the earth. Unto you I say Shalom. Shalom to the hopeful elect. This is the brother Sagalah coming back with a lesson through the Spirit. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying to the hopeful elect. So, as we just heard about Iran and Argentina applying to be a part of the BRICS alliance, which the BRICS alliance has been around for, some years now. And we know once again that that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So Iran and Argentina are looking to join, with that economic juggernaut, right? And we heard in the video that this is being pushed as an alternative to the current economic order, which is the B system, which is NATO, Slovakia, which is the NATO, the EU, the European Union, and America, ruling the earth with America at the head. So this is an alternative, and what all this really is prophecy. So you see here, that NATO is rallying up 300,000 troops from the NATO nations, right, which is primarily the Western world, because of what's going on in Ukraine and the fear that Russia is going to go into Poland, potentially Lithuania. These are all Eastern European countries, and others. Potentially 2 of the newer members that's coming on board here soon, getting into Sweden and Finland, which these nations border Russia. So we see the point and we see that how important geography is with this Third World War, just like all other world wars. So now, as we continue on, let's get a few quick precepts through the Spirit, just going into what's going on. What we're seeing is the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai actually controlling and moving these nations to fulfill prophecy. It's the book of Psalm 119 and 126, and it reads, "It is time for thee, Yahweh, to work, for they have made void thy law." See, the people on the earth, the ruling powers on the earth, headed by Babylon the Great, which is America, they voided the laws of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Right? There's no truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of the law, in this earth, because he that's ruling, is ruling in wickedness. This devil doesn't acknowledge Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Let's read it again. Psalm 119 and 126. "It is time for thee, Yahweh, to work." So we're seeing Yahweh Bashim Yahushai working, by way of the angels, right, on the left and on the right hand side. It says, "For they have made void thy law." And that's the reason, right? So the Lord's coming back, to having the nations be in subjection, by way of sending Yahweh Shai. And that's going to make the earth, be righteous again. So that's what the Lord is doing. He's gathering the nations to bring righteousness to the earth again by way of Yahweh Shai. Now, let's show another precept going into that Proverbs 21 and 1. It says, "The king's heart," which are these ruling powers of these different nations, Xi Jinping, Emmanuel Macron, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Kim Jong-un. These are a lot of the, Angela Merkel, a lot of the ruling powers on the earth of these different assembly of nations as we continue to read. The king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh, so the Lord is controlling all these people, all the kings, as it says also in the book of Psalm, the 75th chapter. The Lord putteth down one and putteth up another. Speaking of rulership on the earth. As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So all these nations and these rulers are doing the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushua ultimately. Let's further show that. This is the book of Joel 3 and 9. So with the Brics alliance and with Iran and Argentina applying to be a part of that, all that's just showing forth that this is the will of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, which is prophecy. Joel 3 and 9, and it reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, which are the heathen nations. Prepare war, so the Lord, who is a man of war, when you read Exodus 15 and 3, Yahweh is known as a man of war, right? So it says, prepare war, wake up the mighty man, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. So that's what we see when we see this alliance of nations. Continuing on. Joel 3 and 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I am strong. So many of these nations 40, 50, 60 years ago, who couldn't have a seat at the G20 table or be regarded as great nations among the assembly of nations in the earth. Now nations like North Korea and others have to be considered because they have the technology, they have the weaponry, they have the ICBM, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, right? Continuing on, it says, assemble yourselves and come. So the Lord is assembling all the nations. And he says the same thing in the book of Zephaniah 3 and 8, that he's assembling the nations. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither calls thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. So when the Lord said he's assembling the nations, what is he making reference to? Jeremiah 50 and verse 9, and it reads, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations. So that's the assembling, which is the Brics alliance, is a prime example of the Lord assembling the great nations to come against Babylon. Let's read it again. Jeremiah 50 and 9, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, which is America, an assembly of great nations. And that's what you see. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, and Argentina, amongst others that were mentioned also in the video. It says, from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. So those arrows are speaking about those missiles that these different nations possess, which the vast majority of these nations that's in the Brics, alliance have those capabilities. So now, let's get a few more precepts just going into prophecy that's being spilled forth throughout the earth. Let's go back to Joel, the 3rd chapter. So this is Joel 3. And going back to verse 11, it says, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. So all the heathen are being assembled and they're coming together to fight, in the battle of Armageddon in English, which is the mounting of the troops, World War III. So now let's show that further. Let's get another precept going into that. This is the book of Obadiah 1 and verse 15. Now, the subtitle here in the blue letter is the day of the Lord and the future. Obadiah 1 and 15. It says, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. Didn't the Lord say in Joel 3 and 9 and in Jeremiah 50 and 9, that he's assembling all the nations? It says, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall be upon thine own head. So the Lord is coming to reward all these nations for putting the children of Israel in captivity, right? And all of the wickedness is being done by the children of the wicked, which are the Edomites. So let's show that further. This is the book of Isaiah. This is Isaiah, Salakia. Book of Isaiah, the 13th chapter. This is Isaiah 13 and verse 11. And it reads, "And I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. And I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. And I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible." So the Lord's coming to punish the world for all the evil that's being done, all of the, the iniquity. And then it says, "And the wicked," who's ruling the world, right? Who's the ruler of this world, which is Esau, Edom. It says, "For all of their iniquity." So now we're seeing that the earth, is in great turmoil. And these assemblies of nations is a witness that Babylon is about to fall, right? This is that alternative economic order. So with that, Lord willing, that was edifying. I want to give all praises, infinite honor and glory, always from Yah to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Call Haloyim La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai. Double honor as always from Yah to the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, love, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect, Habayah from Adawadah, the house of David, the brothers that are giving you this truth day in and day out on the four corners of the earth, laboring diligently to make their calling of election sure, helping seal the elect of the nation of Israel. Also to the Akim and Akwath, the Akyah wa Akwathiyah, who truly listen and believe on the glorious gospel of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, is being preached daily on the four corners of the earth. Unto you I say shalom. So shalom to the hopeful elect.